Finding a job in post-pandemic creative industry is very challenging. And right now there are thousands of design graduates who are desperately searching for job, but most of them are unsuccessful. We might blame it to the scarcity of job which is happening due to the poor performance of fashion companies in pandemic. So in this situation where there are hundreds of design graduates who are desperately looking for a job, you would be surprised to know there are few design graduates who are actually sitting on multiple job offers. So if you ponder that why some students are sitting on multiple jobs where there are hundreds of students who haven't got a single job, so you might assume that all the academically brilliant design graduate students might have secured a job, whereas the academically poor students might not have. But when I did a thorough investigation on this, I figured out that it was actually not that criteria. In many cases, I was shocked to know that there were many academically poor performing students who were actually able to secure a job, whereas there were a lot of academically brilliant students who were really finding it very difficult to secure a job. So this result was very surprising for me, and I actually wanted to investigate that what was the driving factor that actually worked for securing a job. So today's video is all about my finding on this topic so that you can understand what actually matters and can apply that in your job search routine. Now, before we start today's conversation, I'm sure that many of you are wondering why I have included an Indian actor, Farhan Akhtar, in today's conversation. But believe me, Farhan Akhtar is one of the most important part of today's video for you to understand that what is it that actually works in a creative career. I have been sharing this story with all my students in my portfolio and resume building classes to clarify the mysteries of design career. Now, for all the people who do not know who is Farhan Akhtar, let me give you a brief introduction of this person. Farhan Akhtar is a very successful Indian actor, director, screenwriter, playback singer, producer, and television host. I personally regard him as one of the most diversified personality in the history of Indian movie industry. Now let me give you a brief overview of his career graph. Farhan always had a dream of becoming an actor in Indian cinema, but his first successful break into the film industry was as a director at an age of 27. Lucky for him that the first movie that he directed is actually considered to be one of the most groundbreaking movie because of the maturity of the portrayal of the characters and also the storyline that was so freshly presented. This movie actually received 2 national awards and 7 Filmfare awards. I'm actually talking about the iconic movie Dil Chahta Hai. Dil Chahta Hai, kabhi na beete chamkile din. After Dil Chahta Hai, he has directed many noteworthy movies like Lakshya, Dawn and Dawn 2. Farhan did his first movie as a lead actor in 2008 in a movie which was named Rock On, which was actually based on a rock band. And he has also played leading roles in one of the most acclaimed Indian movies, Bhag Milkha Bhag. He's also the producer of Dawn, Dawn 2, Zindagi Milegi Na Dobara, and the amazing Amazon series Mirzapur. So now if you've got an idea about Farhan Akhtar's career graph, let me tell you the promises of today's video. The first one is that you will get a golden tip on cracking a creative job, which is usually 95% effective. And this method is actually used by both American and European design graduates. The second insight is very important because it is going to open your mind to understand the connectivity between your future aim and how to exploit different avenues to enter your desirable industry. The third promise is the most crucial because you will get an insight on how to calibrate your resume so that the possibility of you getting hired is exponentially high. So before getting into the conversation of getting all these promises, we have to first understand that what is the current situation of fashion industry. We all know that just like other industries that have had adverse effect from pandemic, fashion industry too is still recovering for the most brutal assault that it has ever experienced in recent history. The only time this industry confronted such a global adversity of this magnitude was only during the World Wars. And after a gap of 80 years, this pandemic actually got the industry on halt for almost a year. Having said that, it is more important for all of us to understand that what would be the aftermath of pandemic on fashion industry. As I said earlier, that even if fashion design industry is started recovering, but it's still badly hurt. And because of this, there are some crucial changes that has happened in the overall hiring process. So if we look at all the influences that are going to impact the hiring process in fashion industry, the number one influencer would be that because of pandemic, there was a lot of job attrition in the fashion industry last year, due to which there would be a lot of experienced designer who would be looking and applying for the same job which actually are supposed to be for freshers. And because of that, there would be a lot of competition between freshers and experienced designers who are applying for the same job, and where the advantage would be shared by the experienced designer. The second influencer in the hiring process is because of there are very few companies who were able to make profit last year, due to which they have very limited budget for hiring new teams. So they would be preferring hiring people who have multiple skills versus those who are expert in one single skill. And by multiple skill, I mean that if you're a fashion designer and apart from the design skill, you're also offering something like your understanding of social media, or you are a good content writer, or you can do trend forecasting, or you are a great graphic artist. So when you propose different skills to a company, so they look at you as an asset where they can, instead of hiring 3 different people for those 3 different jobs, they would hire you. So that gives you a competitive advantage if you are showcasing multiple skills in your resume. The number 3 influencer in the recruitment process is again coming out of the poor performance of companies in pandemic. Unfortunately, many companies shut down during pandemic, and the number of jobs that are available this year is quite less than the previous years. So there would be a lot of applicants who would be applying for the same job. And when companies get so many applications, then they are going to invent certain measures so that they can identify the right candidate. For example, if you are sitting for a job, you might be asked to do a project, and based on your project, they might be recruiting you. Or maybe you are put on a 6-month probation when you're trying to look for a job. The fourth influencer is the pay scale. So this year, most of you might see that all these companies' offers have lower pay scale, which obviously is again coming out of their poor performance last year. And most of these companies actually did not make profit, and they cannot offer you the same pay scale that they were offering when their companies were profitable. Now, this is again like an insight for all those design graduates who are actually comparing this year's pay scale with last year. That is not going to work out because the situation has been adversely changed. So if I quickly summarize all these 4 points, the first one is that there would be a career competition between experienced designers versus freshers. The second one is the preference of multi-skilled designers over expert of single skill. And the third one is completing industry projects or probation would be part of the recruitment process. And the fourth one is the pay scale this year would be lesser than the previous years. Now, many of the graduating designers are finding this situation very alarming, but there are some adaptive designers who have understood that this is the situation and they have accepted the reality as is. So today's video is also going to give you a method which is going to make it very easy for you to search for a job. In the beginning of this video, I said that there were a lot of fashion design graduates who were unsuccessful in finding a job. But surprisingly, there were few who were actually sitting on multiple job offers. So let me explain you in detail that what is this Farhan Akhtar career methodology. The first aspect of this career methodology is backdoor entry. If you remember, when I gave the introduction of Farhan Akhtar, I said that he always wanted to be an actor, but he debuted as a director in the film industry. So if you look at all the successful creative people, you will understand that most of them has actually made a backdoor entry into the industry of their choice. So if we talk about Farhan Akhtar, at the time when he actually wanted to become an Indian actor, he understood that neither did he had experience of becoming an actor, and he also did not have the charm, and he did not look like a typical Indian hero. At that point of time, he understood that since he had parents from the film industry, he might get his first film because of that parental influence. But he was very vigilant because he was seeing that there were a lot of star kids who were actually getting their first film because of their parental influence, but they were not able to face the competition in a longer run. And he did not wanted to design his career, which was just there as a flash in the new pan. And he was also very unsure that even if he get a movie, what will happen if the audience reject him as a hero? But he wanted to learn all the skills that are required to become a hero. So he entered the film industry as an assistant director. And when the time was right and he thought he was skilled enough, he directed his first film. And to understand his industry better, he did a lot of different projects, and to get more holistic understanding of this industry, he did different projects which was not acting. He produced movie, he has written script, and he has directed different movies. And only after 7 years, when he had got enough understanding of the movie making craft, he launched himself in a movie which is called Rock On. And the movie was so refreshing that the audience immediately accepted him as a lead actor. So what do we learn from the first aspect of this methodology, which I call the backdoor entry? The learning is that there is always a lot of pathways which would actually take you to your destination, but these pathways are only visible to intelligent, creative minds. People with sheep or herd mentality, they are unable to see these pathways because they want to take it easy and want to follow the crowd or the traditional way, which are slightly riskless and have been practiced for a very long time. So let me tell you, there are two big advantages that Farhan got because of the first aspect of his methodology. The first advantage is insanely powerful, and I think Farhan is the only actor who has got that skill, which in the history of Indian cinema, I don't think there is any other actor who has that understanding. And that advantage is that he has an holistic understanding of his craft, which is movie making. Now, working as a director, he understood how to build characters and how to showcase a story in the best possible way. And as a producer, he understood how movies are financed and promoted. And as a scriptwriter, he understood how to create powerful narratives that are actually going to touch and move people. And these essential understanding he would have never got if he would have started his career as an actor. Now here I want to mention one of the most powerful designers in Indian fashion industry, that is Rahul Mishra. I remember him saying that when he's sketching a garment, he visualized that sketch on the catwalk, in the photo shoot, on the social media. So when he is drawing that design, it's not just a sketch on the paper. It's actually a live model that is actually walking on the catwalk. Now, this kind of business understanding can only be garnered through when you are working in different aspects of that craft. And I will also give you examples of many of my brilliant design students who actually wanted to have their own design labels. So they were really desperate to have the holistic viewpoint of this career. So instead of opting for jobs that were related to design, they all chose jobs that were actually related to either merchandising or marketing or sales, e-commerce or production. So these were all the jobs which would actually give them an holistic understanding of what is fashion design business. I actually had a fashion design student who was desperately looking for a merchandising post. And when I asked her that why are you not looking for a design post, she said that I have already invested 4 years in learning design. Now I want to learn the other aspect of fashion design business, and I want the industry to pay me to teach me that. And as destiny has it, in 3 years, she was able to launch a brand which right now is selling in international retail stores. So we actually get two learnings from the first aspect of Farhan's methodology. The first one is that winners do not have sheep mentality. And the second learning is holistic preparation of your career is like building a strong foundation for yourself, which is always going to be an exponential competitive advantage for you over others. Now let me tell you the second advantage that he got because of his backdoor entry. This is one of the most important advantages that I would recommend to all fashion design students. Farhan was able to safeguard himself from the brutal competition that was attached to the lead actors. So since he was not prepared, he actually wanted to prepare more for that role so that he can face the competition. So if I connect this analogy to the recruitment process in fashion design industry, I know there are two categories of students. So there is one category of design graduates who are applying for the best job category. Now, when you're applying for best job categories, there are hundreds of applicants who are applying for the same job, and the competition is so high and the probability of your placement is quite low. So you might be applying for the 10 best jobs and you might not be able to crack any of it because the number of applicants are so many. So in this whole hour of only applying for the best jobs, they actually get blinded that there are so many opportunities which are there, which are going to get them to the industry where they can learn their skills on a live ground. So this viewpoint of only applying for the best job, according to me, is a very narrow-minded approach for your career building because it actually limits you from all those opportunities which would actually help you in sharpening your skills in the industry. Now, this is the point where I want to introduce you the method that is used by all the fashion design graduates in Europe and America. So mostly 95% of fashion design graduates in Europe and America, they don't apply for jobs. So what they instead do is they apply for internship in different companies. And it is very easy for companies to give people internship instead of job. So this practice is very, very advantageous to the fashion design graduates because if they like their internship, they like the culture of the company, if they see that there is a lot of growth potential, they're going to give their heart and soul to work there. And in 2 months, they would be eventually hired by the same company. And if they don't like the place, it's very easy for them to go off. So this is basically symbiotically beneficial for both the company, because if the company thinks you're not good enough, you would be off the charts in 2 months. And if you think the company is not good enough, you would be anyway not working there. But if you think that the company is good, you would be working hard and you would be eventually getting hired. So instead of waiting for months and waiting for somebody to recruit you, why don't you start sending your internship request to all those companies that you really desire to work with? Because for them to get you as an intern is a lot easier than to give you a job because maybe they don't have a vacancy. And if we look at this internship method to secure a job, it pretty much aligns to the first aspect of Farhan Akhtar's methodology, which is the backdoor entry. So you're not asking the company to give you a job, you're actually just asking the company to give you an internship. But what you actually want is the job. Now coming to the third aspect of Farhan's methodology, which I consider to be a jewel in the crown. Because if you remember in the beginning of the video, I said that Farhan did not have the personality of an Indian hero. So what he did, so his first movie was actually based on a rock band. So in that movie, he just did not play it as a lead role. So he actually sang all the songs, which eventually became super hit. He was able to create a new kind of audience who really love the authenticity of an actor rather than projecting yourself as a hero. So if you look into the depth of this, you will see that he presented himself as a multi-talented artist. Now, how would you apply this learning from Farhan's third aspect in your job searching method? Basically, as I've said earlier, companies are going to prefer people with multi-skill. So the first thing that you need to do is you have to recalibrate your resume where you make sure that you are presenting yourself as a person who have multiple skills. And when I say multiple skills, it does not mean that if you're a fashion designer, you are telling them that you understand Adobe Photoshop or you understand what is clothing and you know what is pattern making and draping. So these are actually all the elements which are pretty much the skill that a fashion designer should have. So that is anyway an essential part of your resume. But what about other multi-skills which are different from fashion design? Let's say you're saying I can do fashion forecasting, or I can do content writing, or I understand how to upload images on website, or I can do social media marketing. Because these are different jobs for which they have to hire different people. So if your resume is telling them that in one person they are getting 3 people for their industry, you would always be the preferred choice. Now I would conclude this video with 3 learnings. Number 1 is that for creative people, there are millions of pathways that would actually take you to your desired destination. And all those pathways are not visible to people with sheep mentality. The second learning is that appropriate preparation for your career is very important. And the third learning is that holistic learning of your career is always going to give you exponential competitive advantage. Now that's all for now. If you learned anything insightful from this video, please like it. And if you know someone who would be benefited out of this information, please share it. And with that, I wish you all the very best for your career.